Welcome to Content Marketing Engineered, your source for building trust and generating demand with technical content. Here is your host, Wendy Covey.
Hi, and welcome to Content Marketing Engineered. On each episode, I'll break down an industry trend, challenge, or best practice in reaching technical audiences. You'll meet colleagues, friends, and clients of mine who will stop by to share their stories. And I hope that you leave each episode feeling inspired and ready to take action. Before we jump in, I'd like to give a brief shout out to my agency, TREW Marketing. TREW is a full-service agency located in beautiful Austin, Texas, serving highly technical companies. For more information, visit trewmarketing.com. And now, on with our podcast. Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Content Marketing Engineered. I'm joined by our regular guest and friend, Morgan Norris, Senior Brand and Content Strategist at TREW Marketing. Hey, Morgan.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
It's good to see you. In fact, you were here in person in Austin just a mere few days ago, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah. We had a good time hanging out together at the ERA conference. And for those of you who aren't familiar with ERA, that stands for the Electronics Representatives Association. They have an annual conference, and not only is it for the sales reps, but the manufacturers of the electronic components that they represent, as well as the distributors. So a lot of the supply chain was in attendance at this conference.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Morgan, I was looking at the ERA website, and did you know that ERA started in 1935 by radio part representatives? And the original name, get this, they called themselves the Peddlers.
Oh, I'm glad they've evolved the name.
Yes. Yeah. Within 2 years, I think they found that name to be a bit unprofessional. And yeah, so
it's crazy. It's crazy to see the legacy of some of the things in this industry. We were sitting in some of the awards one day, and one of the women who won the award got up and just talked about how her mother started the business that she runs now in, I think, 1981, and just this supportive, collaborative environment of people pursuing kind of the same industry over decades and decades was really neat to see.
Yeah, it sure was. So we thought we would come on the podcast today and just share some of the key themes and different sessions that we attended, particularly those, right, that are relevant for marketers. So what I think, Morgan, maybe we walk through the sessions first and then talk about some of the keynotes that we attended towards the end. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Yeah, cool. Let's start with women in electronics. That was a fun breakfast.
Yes, 7 a.m. on day one, a room of bright-eyed, ready to go people on conference day one. What stood out to me here was Jackie Maddox leads Women in Electronics. And I think I was really impressed by just seeing their passion for mentoring in the industry. So they're open to connecting mentors and mentees and really furthering women in electronics. They were saying that in 2013, there were 9% of the ERA attendees were women. And then 10 years later, it's up to 15%, but just wanting to see that grow. And there's a lot of opportunity for that because of just natural turnover with people retiring in the industry. It seemed across sessions like it was an understood fact that in 5 or 10 years, the audience of a conference like this is going to look very different with new faces. And so wanting to bring women into that, and that ERA is open to women and men, but really this just focus of how do we get more voices in the room? And I love that.
Yeah. And there were probably almost as many men in that session as there were women, which may surprise people, but that's the beauty about how they're approaching this organization. Is very inclusive, and, they're trying to bring people together, not divide them, and help them understand how, the benefit that there is from recruiting more women into this industry and having a more diverse workforce.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that was great.
Yeah. So then fresh from there, one of the first sessions that you and I attended together was on social selling and really focused in on LinkedIn.
Yep. Yes, and Jordan Yates and then a woman named Santa from two different organizations were there, and being kind of interviewed panel style by Mary Ellen from Sager, just about what it looks like to engage in the social conversation as far as selling goes. So Jordan is an engineer by trade, but man, just talked about creating video, engaging in conversations on LinkedIn, and posting really regularly. And she really talked from a personal standpoint, more than Santa talked about kind of posting on LinkedIn and engaging from a company, from a corporate standpoint. And they balance each other out really well. But I loved, Jordan really represented this idea of being able to represent your company and kind of thought leadership at different levels. So she's really young, a few years out of college. And so doesn't necessarily have a ton of authority in her company as far as an org chart goes, but knows she has a voice. And so even at her prior job, started posting on LinkedIn on a regular basis, talking about what she's doing in engineering and what she's doing in life. Some of her like tangential hobbies. She talked a lot about soldering. She's making videos about soldering. She's an engineer and she wants to kind of mess with things and create something new and figure out how things work. And so it's not what she does for her job, but it is engaging actually to the same audience that she appeals to in her job. And so just talked about creating really low barrier videos, and engaging. And she felt sometimes we don't know kind of what the ROI looks like. You've got to start posting consistently. And she said when she switched jobs, she stopped for a couple weeks or a month or so, and people started kind of pinging her saying, "Where'd you go? We miss your content." And that was such a like kind of soft ROI metric, I think, for her, of people are listening, people are engaging, and she's building a following there. So I thought that was just a really great example.
It sure was. And another thing that I took away from that example was she took her following with her. And so, you could think about there's a void she left behind at the company that she's no longer with. And so if we turn the tables a little bit and think about your corporate strategy for social, no one wants to engage with the company on social. They want to engage with people. And it's great to have people like Jordan be a spokesperson, but it's also important to have some of these long-termers, these tenured senior level people be engaged that are going to be around. And so it's really a mixture of both. There's not like do one and not the other. It all helps to have a voice for your brand and with your customers, but just keep in mind that you will have some turnover and some of that will have to be replaced or found elsewhere.
Yeah, having multiple voices helps so much because you're not banking it all on one person or your audience interacting with that corporate page. So
yeah. You know what did not come up in that session? Again, this session was called social selling, I believe, or that was part of the title, was selling utilizing LinkedIn, like doing that sales pitch via, private messages. No one asked about it. No one presented on it. And I thought that was a very good sign that people are seeing that that's not really appropriate. It doesn't work very well. Someone did ask about, can I send a piece of content? Like when I connect with someone, would it be appropriate to then just send them a piece of content? And do you remember what the advice was on that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was basically, well, I mean, that's great and you're being helpful, but you may not want to do it right away. Like let them choose to take your content. Like better to share it to your network and let them grab it. Or if you're going to share it like that, do it for a reason. Like, I thought you'd be interested in this because of these reasons. Like, make it hyper personalized. Don't make it generic. Like, hi, nice to meet you. Here's a research report. Like,
right.
it's not. It seems too salesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There definitely seemed to be a fatigue over people trying to connect only for the purpose of a sale kind of on LinkedIn, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on. Another panel that you attended that was so enlightening was one that it was a panel with a manufacturer, a representative, and a distributor talking about how they can collaborate and communicate. They talked about co-op programs, I believe. So tell me a bit about that one because I missed out on this one.
This was really cool. So I went into this conference having a little bit of a mushy understanding of the relationship between manufacturers, representatives, and distributors. And I was waiting for these clear black lines to be drawn in between complete division of labor. And while there is some, your reps are working for manufacturers, getting paid commission by manufacturers when something sells, but the sale actually happens through the distributor. So distributors buy from manufacturers. They can negotiate discounts and rates that way. And then distributors are the ones actually selling the product. And one thing that really, really stood out to me was each distributor has its own set of differentiators. And I'll pick on Sager because they were hosting the panel, but they were talking about how they doubled down on power electronics. And so not only do they sell the kind of equipment needed for power electronics, but they also staff engineers to help package some of the products together for that end customer. So for example, they've got expertise in-house on designing maybe switches and relays so that customers have a seamless integration when they go to drop those parts into their solutions. And so they were really encouraging reps to understand the differentiators of different distributors so that they can kind of clue in and go different directions based on a customer need. And so I thought that was really interesting. And the second piece was that reps, I think in a lot of organizations, when you've got internal sales teams, there's a lot of other people to leverage, even in your own building. Right? You can go grab marketing or you can pull a resource from a wiki or something like that. But there's a lot of pressure and expectation even that these sales reps know a ton about the technical nuances of the products and different lines from different organizations. And so they're the ones that kind of have this opportunity to take content. We were talking about this concept of taking manufacturers' content and putting their own point of view on it and being able to share that to their audiences because their end customers are really looking to them for expertise. The end customers can go straight to the distributors and buy something if they want to, but that salesperson provides that personal level of expertise and guides them where, through that purchase and product selection. And so it was impactful to me, kind of how much onus is on that sales rep to really know and understand the products.
Yeah. So the manufacturers have a vested interest in the sales reps getting up to speed and staying current with their products.
Yeah.
And the manufacturers sometimes offer co-op dollars to help, with marketing, with training, things like that. And we met separately. One of the manufacturing companies in attendance is also a client of TREW Marketing's. And so we had the opportunity to sort of debrief from this session with them. And we said, how often do you offer these co-op things or work with your sales reps? And they said, they just need to ask us. If they have a good marketing idea, we will fund them, but they don't ask necessarily. So we uncovered, I feel like, a big opportunity for these sales rep companies to think about how they can extend the manufacturer's campaign or create their own with the manufacturer's support because they're all for it.
I think there's a big opportunity for kind of innovation in the industry as a whole and new ways of doing practices. If you're getting maybe new people as the rep kind of industry turns over, retires, and you're getting new people in with creative ideas for marketing that they're willing to go ask for those dollars. That was really impactful, right? Sure. If they'd ask us, we'd fund that, which was great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I could just see it now, this young new rep, and they go to visit the manufacturer at their facility and create a ton of videos,
right?
And while they're there, showing that relationship, how tight knit it is. Oh man, there's so many ideas.
Right.
So many great things. Well, let's talk about our session. So we actually presented the same session twice, one on each day, and we presented turning your brand into a trusted resource utilizing content marketing. And our presentation had 3 parts to it. So what did you present, Morgan?
Yeah, so I talked through creating your brand messaging and then creating content. So we walked through what it looks like to create messaging, kind of the 2 factors of really understanding your customer pain points. We talked about doing that through the lens of doing stakeholder interviews and going out to your audiences, customers, vendors, partners, and talking about hearing what their exact pain points are. And we've talked a lot about this on this podcast, customer interviews. And then from there, developing and messaging differentiators. And for reps, that's kind of twofold, right? They've got their own differentiators as a rep firm. So that's the type of expertise that they have, the tight relationships that they have with manufacturers. Those are more kind of felt needs. And then they've got the tangible differentiators and benefits of the products that they rep. So they need to know both of those sides. And then from there, we talked about creating content and starting to create content by identifying a single topic that you want to build some thought leadership around, and then defining, 6 to 10 subtopics around that you can create content for. That content might look like blog posts. It might look like a gated white paper. It might look like a video. It might look like every Monday you post on LinkedIn about this topic. So that I think particularly for these reps, those content types can take a lot of different forms. And so that's kind of what we talked about, really building kind of authority and expertise around a specific area.
Yeah.
And we transition to. Yeah.
Well, before we talk about the rest of the presentation,
Yeah.
I kind of want to pause here and talk about content development, because generative AI and ChatGPT in particular kept coming up, not only in our session, lots of questions about it, but it came up in many of the other sessions. So a lot of curiosity, a lot of maybe, I won't say misinformation, but some confusion over how it could be leveraged well and how it maybe doesn't work so well. So tell me, let's just sidebar on that real fast. What kinds of questions did you get? And what is your, thoughts?
So I think there's a little bit of awe over the novelty of ChatGPT creating content, but I want to step back a little bit and we got to remind ourselves that this concept of AI is not brand new, right? It's the ping you get from Amazon that you normally order. I normally order a 12-pack box of macaroni and cheese every 3 months, and I haven't placed my order, right? Or it's the auto-generated captions that come up on videos. These are forms of AI. And so now we're continuing to advance. ChatGPT is there. You can insert a question. You can give it a few parameters and you can have it spit out some content for you. And in other sessions, there was talk of, we love this, we hate it, use it to write your whole LinkedIn profile. Don't do that. But I think the main takeaway for us is we're still recommending that it's a brainstorm tool. And the biggest thing that I go back to is from our research, we know that engineers will search up to page 5, even page 10 of Google search results to find exactly what they want. And so to type in a question and give them an answer, publish the answer that it gives us is really doing a huge disservice, I think, to the nuanced aspects of these technical questions. And so I don't think it's going to take long for audiences to really crave these individual opinions. I want the knowledge, Wendy, that's in your head. I don't want this genericized answer that's been spit out. As far as kind of technical expertise, if I'm looking how to boil an egg, then I want the most genericized, proven whatever answer. But if I'm figuring out how to test something that's never been tested before, I want the ideas and expertise that are captured within people's own experiences. So,
yeah, I feel like that was a theme throughout our presentation, is having a point of view on a subject, sharing that point of view and how important and special that is. And so during my, so I had two sections that I presented after yours on content. And so the first one was where to share your message. And so we walked through a lot of the research from the State of Marketing to Engineers research report on where engineers and other buyers are seeking information. And one of the big discussions we had was on video. And we had lots of questions about, well, okay, you're saying it doesn't have to be a polished video. It could be something as simple as, turning on your webcam, but how do I show this little capacitor and this tiny little electronic component and have it be near my face? Or like, what exactly does that look like? And what types of video are engineers seeking out? So I thought you had some good advice here.
Yeah, so I had recommended, we're talking to a room of reps. They own these personal relationships. They are the ones representing brands. And so just this thought of get your face in front of the camera, and really don't be afraid to get your face in front of the camera. Don't be afraid of video. So our research shows that 96% of engineers watch video weekly for work. And so there's a demand for it, but being able to just kind of flip on your Zoom camera like this and have a discussion about a topic that's relevant and kind of having your voice out there. Now, if you're showing a product, you don't have to keep your face in that video, but just a variety of video content and lowering the barrier. I think 10, 15 years ago, when video started to become more prevalent, YouTube started in 2005, which it feels like video is both new and has been here forever as a marketing tool. But realistically, it's been, kind of 15 years or so since people were actually using it in a marketing context. But 15 years ago, we were looking at these huge $20,000, $30,000 branded corporate videos. And that's still a thing, but you can't wait until you save up $30,000 to get your voice in the game on video. And so just encouraging people to start small, and lighting is important. Have some good lighting, just be by natural light, be by a window. That'll help a lot. And then sound quality, have a decent microphone. And anymore, that doesn't even mean you probably have something at your desk that has a decent microphone. If it's not your computer, it's your headphones that you use or whatever. You don't need really any fancy kind of equipment. And so encouraging people to just get started that way.
Yes, just get started. I love that. Some other things that came up when we were talking about where to share information were e-newsletters. And a gentleman in the audience is all over it. They do their e-newsletters. He said they have what he called kind of the general purpose e-newsletter, like the generic one, but then they hyper personalize the newsletter down to, in some cases, personas, and in other cases down to the actual person. So they think about each group and how they can, slice up their database and how to be as relevant as possible. And he said they get 70% open rates. And I nearly fell off the stage when I heard that. That is so fantastic. And I was like, sir, you are kicking ass. And I think everybody got a kick out of that. So
it's such a good example of doubling down on something specific to do it really, really well. And I'm sure that involved a lot of tweaks along the process, and then figuring out how much time is too much time that we're spending on this. But they found this spot where they're drastically exceeding industry open rates, right? And how great that is for them that they found a tool to use. So
yeah. Another thing I shared was our friends at Knowles Precision Devices were doing some pretty cool content marketing campaigns. And so I showed them an example. It was a capacitor campaign where they wrote 20 blog posts and they trickled them out once every week, every 2 weeks. And once those 20 were published, repurposed that content into a lead generating ebook, and then took that ebook and of course promoted it in their e-newsletter, in LinkedIn ads, all over the place. And so this was a very successful campaign for Knowles, and other people can utilize this same sort of, process. But we were encouraging the sales reps to run their own capacitor campaigns. And so if they rep for Knowles, for instance, wow, why not take that content, add your point of view, and share it on LinkedIn or share it on your website, drive people to that form? Because guess what? If people are going to download that ebook, they're becoming leads for your region, and it all comes back around. So what an efficient and cost-effective way to leverage your manufacturer's content for your own marketing.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah. What else do you remember that came up in the audience during our presentation?
Yeah, Canva came up as a tool.
Yeah.
So Canva, something I'm sure we've talked about it on here before, but if you're trying to create content, and I think some of these reps, like, there's not a ton of resources at hand. They're working for firms that are 5, 10, 15 people. They don't have a bunch of in-house marketing or anything like that. But with Canva, it's an online web-based design tool, but it has lowered the barrier to design work like 100-fold. I mean, the days are gone where you need to figure out how to use Adobe InDesign or Illustrator and go from blank page to completely designed document. Canva is full of thousands and thousands of templates that you can go in and select and customize. You can start from scratch in there, but you also don't have to. You can go from, you see graphics on LinkedIn when people share kind of nicely designed graphics, and they might have a data point in there and a product image or something. You can go from nothing to creating that in 20 minutes. It's just a really potentially low barrier to help you get started. And so encouraging people to jump in there as well. Technical audience, super technical stuff is still hard, but there's a lot of stock photography in Canva if you have the pro membership. And so stock photography is often something that's really, it's just difficult. All of a sudden it's a barrier. Like, do I spend $100 on this image, or what size do I need? Or what does that look like? And it's all available for use within the context of your kind of Canva subscription. So that came up, and I always love sharing that as a tool because it's so helpful to people.
Nice. And I think too, Canva came up in the context of making your videos look a little more professional.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because you could create a frame, just like if you guys are watching this podcast right now on YouTube, or if you go look it up, you'll see that we use Canva to create, put the show logo on and have a nice space where the captions go. And that is super easy to do and templatize in Canva. So, yeah, cool. Okay, so at the very end of our second presentation, we're like meeting and greeting, and this it's really funny. This is one of the only, in this industry in general, everybody still uses business cards. So like business cards are flying. At least they have QR codes now. And that was funny, right? Because some QR codes went to LinkedIn. Some went to the company website, like their profile page, and some created a contact in your phone when you scanned it. And, I started asking people, where do you expect this QR code to take you? And where do you think it's going to take you? And I got as many opinions back as we saw, variations. So
we'd have to see what the data says. The one where it creates a contact in my phone feels a little aggressive. And also I think I need to put more notes in there. I would need to stop and say, oh yeah, this is the person that I met on ERA, versus if I have your LinkedIn, then all of a sudden I associate you with your company and what you do and how I met you right then. But if you're sitting next to like my kid's school phone number and my next door neighbor, then the context gets lost.
Yeah. It's so funny. I went home and shared with my husband and quizzed him on which one he liked the best. And he liked the phone one best. And
he
you
did.
and I liked it least. And he was in technology,
and he's in sales.
And his phone is chock full of these people. And he goes, oh, that's so brilliant. And he goes, and then if it auto loaded the context or their LinkedIn profile or whatever, like if it auto loaded the notes, in other words, that said who this person is and had links to the other things, he goes, that to me is like nirvana. So
that's true. And then you know what? If I gave you my card and it automatically loaded, went into my contact and you just saved my contact. And then when I call you, it's not an unknown number. It comes up with my,
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Huh.
who knows about it?
So anyway, so I had to bring that up because I just
Yeah.
found that we haven't, right? We're just now getting back to in-person stuff.
Right.
So I think everybody is like brushing off the cobwebs on their business cards, and that's actually a thing right now.
Yeah.
And so if those listening fall under, into that category, definitely add a QR code, think through this. Morgan and I tried adding pictures. I wasn't a big fan of that. I think save that for the real estate professionals, maybe.
Yeah.
And so business cards are flying. We're about to exit, our presentation's over. And then a gentleman comes over and he has his website on his phone and he's like, "Hey, Morgan, Wendy, can you just give me like a 60-second web audit? Just
Yeah.
tell me what you think."
Yep.
That was fun.
I love that. I would love one day to have like listeners call in or message in, and then we do like we'll give you like a 2-minute audit based on what we can see on the screen.
Okay. All right. We'll put it on the EdCal. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up by touching on a few of our favorite keynotes. And these perhaps are a little less marketing oriented and a little more trends oriented. So one was an economist, and these are so interesting. So every year they have an economist come and talk about, the state of the economy as it relates specifically to electronics, macroeconomic conditions, economic conditions within the industry as well. And what were some, I don't know, big takeaways that you had from listening to that?
Yeah, so a few things. He definitely felt like we weren't in like dire fear of recession at the moment. So even maybe some dips getting pushed off to Q1 of 2024. And then another thing that stood out to me was just jobs. So the thing with the tech layoffs and stuff right now happening, kind of big tech layoffs, what's happening is for every person that gets laid off, there's 2 jobs available. And companies that are not crazy technical are looking to hire these people who have this technical expertise because they have just kind of upped the ante in understanding technology and moving it forward. And so I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. And along those same lines, they also talked about how the sector that's benefited the most from this current job market are those that have no high school degree or high school degree, but no college experience, because the job market's so tight, companies are willing to train. And as long as someone is, professional and shows, growth potential, they'll come in and train them. And so that was exciting to me that there's a path for everyone. You don't have to necessarily go get a 4-year degree to find a great job. So really like that too.
Yeah, it definitely feels like if you're willing, there is work to be found. So
yeah, so bullish. I don't know if I should use the word bullish, but he made us feel better about the economy for sure, in terms of not likely to have a recession, or if we do, it would be 1 quarter long in 2024. But there were a couple caveats to that. And he said, it's my job to make sure that everybody leaves here feeling uncomfortable. And then he talked about, conflict with Russia and with China, and how if things escalated, of course, all bets are off and things may look way different. So let's all pray for peace, and, and hopefully things will look good in our economy moving forward.
for sure.
Yeah. And then the very, very last keynote of the conference is a gentleman by the name of Michael Knight. And he is basically does the future looking trends. So what are the 20 trends in our industry that everybody should be looking out for? And oh gosh, such a fascinating presentation. And I don't think we absolutely cannot do justice to it, but what were some big things that stuck with you from his presentation, Morgan?
Yeah, so I loved, he divided the trends up into 10 of them were technology. So think like the core of what makes something function or differentiates it. And the other 10 were applications. So what's the opportunity and what's this enabling on the other end? And a few really cool ones I thought were, one, battery storage. I think I have stayed on this a little bit, just kind of intermittently, depending on what our clients look like. We have a few that work in power storage and things like that over time, but the massive advancements that are being made in battery storage and power storage so that we can potentially have this kind of renewable, unlimited energy, because we've got the devices out there, the windmills are out there, and they can capture the energy. We're just having trouble storing it effectively for long-term use, the solar panels, things like that. But it seems like once we can really, really unlock this mass battery storage, kind of grid level power storage, we unlock a crazy amount of renewable, almost unlimited feeling energy. So that was one. And then another one was just the AI technology and the machine learning and processing that's happening right now, and how, yes, it's generative content, but it's also enabling EVs, right? It's enabling kind of everything that goes along with autonomy, just having things done for you that we've in the past had to do manually. And with that, as far as EVs go, there's a massive opportunity for sensors. So we were talking about a lot of these manufacturers, sensors is a large component of what some of these manufacturers do. And the sheer billions of sensors that will be needed to, like, if the technology is there to process the data, that's great, but the sensors needed to capture the data, and then the cloud storage to be able to process and store that data, that market is massive. And so it was interesting. He would have numbers that like start in the millions and then they go to the billions and low trillions. And so seeing that huge, vast increase was really impressive, and I think just speaks to a lot of opportunity in that area.
Yeah, I remember him saying, every time the stock market dips, I buy in data storage. Yeah. Every single time, because there's just, and I forget what the statistic was on how much data a car pumps out every single day. It's quite impressive. And so all of his data has to be stored somewhere, like you said before, it could be processed. And so what does that look like in the future?
Yep.
Yeah. Robotics, a lot of talk on robotics, and
yep.
Showed example of like the robot delivering your food to you at your table. And, there's a joke. If you already have a robot in your home, if you have Roomba, who doesn't have Roomba these days? So,
right.
It's just the continuation of where to apply robotics, especially when you have a tight labor market. A lot of, people are forced to think about things differently because you just can't hire.
Yep. Yeah, it's pushing that. He talked about the commercialization of space and what that's driving as far as technology goes. And then as well, kind of the smart city concept. And we're starting to get little glimpses of this. If you've got a Nest thermostat in your home, we have these kind of smart home devices, and then what that will look like to expand out. And I think what's so crazy is when we were talking early, late 90s, early 2000s, you would talk about technology advancements, and you would talk about like in 2000, you're talking about like in the year 2030, this will like, be crazy. And he's talking about we're in 2023, and a lot of his projections that would be like 10 or 20 or 50x were in 2027. And so that's 4 years from now. And just the speed of acceleration is massive. So
wow. Yeah, I just got goosebumps with you repeating it. I remember on the smart city, one thing that stuck out with me is, and I'll tell a story to make my point. So after this presentation, we had a team dinner, right? Because you were in Austin. So all the Austinites got together and we were circling for parking, right? And circling, and ended up paying way too much at this parking place. And it was this big ordeal to get the app and pay and all this stuff. Well, I thought back to his keynote, and he said, part of the future of smart cities will be, you're taking your car into the city. You're being transported by however that works from the outskirts to, in all the way to that restaurant. So what does that look like? You don't even bring your vehicle in. So for a Texan, like we all have our vehicles and we're all driving and whatever, that's pretty novel to us. We don't have trains and subways from many places to take us in the city center. So for everyone to have accessibility to that without it being this massive infrastructure subway or whatever it is project, that's a new way of doing things.
Yeah. Won't Jen be happy if she doesn't have to find parking in town?
Yes, she will. Good. Well, any other takeaways that you feel we should share before we hop off and call it?
I think that's about it. I'm so glad we were there. It was a great conference to learn and just get to kind of share ideas and see what's happening in the industry, and always fun to be in Austin. I love that they hosted there.
Yes. Well, it was wonderful to see you, and thank you for coming on today. And I'm sure we'll see you again on the show very soon.
Great. Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks for joining me today on Content Marketing Engineered. For show notes, including links to resources, visit truemarketing.com/podcast. While there, you can subscribe to our blog and our newsletter and order a copy of my book, Content Marketing Engineered. Also, I would love your reviews on this podcast. So please, when you get a chance, subscribe and leave me your review on your favorite podcast subscription platform. Thanks and have a great day.